Okay, so this video is going to show you how to turn an orthographic drawing like this into an isometric sketch like this. We are now moving to the point where I'm going to start expecting you to be able to convert between these two pretty fluently, but not without a bunch more practice. So there's a couple practice problems here. We'll probably do a couple more in the future. This is just the starter activity. Similar format to before. You can upload your sketch in this spot on the Google slide. After you do it on the paper, you can do it just by holding it up to the camera on your computer like you've done in the past. So when you look at this, don't let yourself get overwhelmed. This is a lot like what I talked about with the snowflake idea, that you need to crystallize this isometric drawing one point at a time until you go through. It's the same reason that we did those point ID activities where we went and we identified the numbers of points, because it's the same idea as that you have to be able to look at this and say, well, which of these points up here does that correspond to? Well, this point corresponds to this one and this one, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of the strategy that we'll be using here in this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this on some regular paper. You can ask me if you're out of isometric paper. I do have this like thick line paper here, but I don't want to use that. I did attach the assignment an isometric PDF that you can actually trace over, but I'll give more details of that in class before I set you on the video. So without further ado, as I have already talked enough, this is going to be me going through this and kind of working it out. So if we start out with this, I'm going to fold this in half. You want to leave enough space for you on your paper. I'm just folding this so that we can see both right next to each other on my little document camera here. So when you're drawing these, you want to leave yourself enough room. I would recommend starting pretty much in some open space. What I like to do, and there's going to be about 50 different ways to do this, is pick a point and start working off of it. So why don't we pick, let's see, I'm going to pick this point down here just because I know it's going to be in like the lower right corner of the drawing. And I'm going to just start working on this. So let's say we're going to put this point right here. So from that point, and I think I've left myself enough space here. You can count the squares if you want, but if you just stay down and away from everything, things should go pretty well for you. Okay, so I'm going to start with this point here, leave some room on all sides for this. And I am going to just start working on this. So if I look at this, I can see, well, this point is the bottom. Okay, I'm starting here. I'm definitely going to have to go over 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, let's pick a direction. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now I've gotten to this point. So you can kind of go back and forth. And I know you'll have it on a screen. You won't have it on a piece of paper like this, but the same principle applies. You can use your finger or whatever you need to do. Now I look at this point and I say, well, what's going on here? Okay. I have to visualize this object three-dimensionally. Well, this point, if I look up top, it could be this point or this point. Okay. It could be either one of those. Well, it's probably, if I'm at the front of the object and I've gone in here, I've probably just gone from this point, which corresponded to that one, over to this one. So I just moved over. So why don't we come forward now? We'll come forward 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to come forward 3. All right, now I'm still at the same spot from this view, but I've moved to the forward of this. So now I got to go over all the way to the side. Well, that's probably this line right here. So I'm going to go, what is this, 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, now I'm over at this corner. And maybe you want to cross off the points as you go. I don't know, whatever works for you. All right, now I've kind of done the front shape of this. So why don't we go up now? So I'm going to go up 2, which brings me to this point right here. I got to come back to get this point. So let's come over 1, 2, 3 squares. Let's go up 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And now, all right, now I'm at the front of this. Now, here is where it can start to get tricky because you might be like, what's going on here? Well, I don't know. Well, this is where you just have to have some faith and draw a line. Okay. I know that there's going to be a line here that's 3 over. So let's go 1, 2, 3. Okay. And so that brings me to this point. And looking up here, well, I'm starting to see maybe this object goes back 3 also because, well, I had this point corresponding to this point and this point. So I'm going to come back 3. And now I might start to see, well, this is all taking shape. There's nothing here, so there's got to be a big open space here. So I'm going to come forward until I get a point that lines up with this bottom one. And now I think I'm starting to see, well, I've created the whole sort of front part of this. And you'll start to notice, well, there have to be lines in some other spots. Like clearly, this is an inside corner. So let's bring a line down there. This is an outside corner. So let's bring that down. Oh, look, we just drew this line, both the front and back part of it. We just drew them both. So let's focus on the top part here now. Well, if I look at this point, I know that's got to correspond to this point over here. So why don't I work now back from that? Because this point, it's got to correspond to this point or this point. So it's, again, it's just like that point ID. You're sort of jumping around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And look at this. This starts to make sense because if we went back 5, okay, and we look on the top view, this is 2 squares from the back to the front of this. If we were to draw a line straight over, it's 2 squares. So everything sort of checks out. It's like checking your work in math class. Things should kind of start to make sense after a while. And I think we just did that line. Let's do this back line. If we count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, well, that should line up with the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at that. It does. We've got that shape. Well, pretty obviously, this part back here we can just fill in. We don't have a right side view, so we just got to fill it in. And then we're just missing one line, and it's this line right here, which corresponds to that line off to the side. So I'm just going to throw that in. And just like that, this sketch sort of formed one point at a time, one line at a time, right out of that orthographic drawing that we had. And the last thing you could kind of do to check your work is to really ask yourself, well, does this isometric I just created correspond to all of the correct surfaces? Remember when we did surface ID? Does it correspond to these surfaces over here? Well, let's take a look, all right? If I use blue for the front and I say, well, okay, all the front view has got to be blue. Everything in the front view. Well, this shape is blue. That's just like this shape right here. Okay, we got that right. That's correct. We've got this shape right here. That's got to be blue also, so that looks good. Okay, let's switch to a different color. You don't have to use colors. You don't even have to do this. This is just another way to sort of check your work. If we make the top view all yellow, okay, right? We've got this shape, and we've got this L shape. Well, this shape right here is kind of hidden behind in our isometric, and this L shape is on the top. And then we can't see these right side views, but if we say to ourselves, well, where are those edges, all right? If this were going to be the red stuff, this surface would correspond to this edge right here, which also corresponds to this edge up top. And then this surface is going to correspond to this edge and this edge. So you can see how these two are kind of tied together there. Oh, and we forgot. This back surface behind this, looking back this way, would be this edge up here. So that's sort of like that. So you can use this to help you, this sort of visualization idea, to go back and forth between these two. So that should be your goal. Once you're done with this one, give it an upload it to the assignment. And when you turn it in, I'll be checking these in class so I can see how people are doing and see if I need to adjust and help everybody a little more. But then you can go on to the next ones and give them a try. The next ones are a little trickier, but follow the same process and you should be golden. All right, give it a shot, people.